Well, Diane, what a day. We have a guest speaker from KCL. At the meeting is skipped by Sheila, an employee from KCL, and Kelly Williams, still an employee of KCL, asked the former executive director of KCL to introduce you. So it looks like a KCL takeover. I've known Diane for 37 years, approximately 37 years, since I moved to Kenora. Diane was born just inside the Canadian border at Rainy River, or near Rainy River being on the American side where she was born. And I understand you had questions about your citizenship later on. I trust those have been resolved by now. But anyway, after finishing her education locally at a college, which I don't know because you didn't send me your bio like I was supposed to get. What college was that?
It was at college, but Kelly has my bio.
And I sent it to you, Jim.
Oh, well, it's too bad it didn't arrive. But in any event, after her attending college, she was hired on at KCL before I arrived. I arrived in August of 1984. She was director of a Ministry of Health funded program which provides supports for persons with serious mental illnesses. To have a program for persons with mental illnesses provided by an association for community living whose dominant client group have developmental disabilities is a bit uncommon. Diane's business model was very much influenced by MBO, that's management by objectives, which fits Diane's management style as an implementer. Before long, in addition to the Life Skills Day program, she acquired a residential or community support role. In my role as executive director, I required competent lieutenants to provide some of my responsibilities for the smaller funded programs, and Diane did so for the Ministry of Health funded programs, as did Kelly, by the way, for the Ministry of Children's Services. I believe both ministries actually preferred dealing with them rather than I. In particular, Diane had an excellent working relationship with a progressive ministry official by the name of Jack Young, who tended to buy into KCL's inclusion and community philosophy. Diane and her program acted as an advocate for this client group. In addition to clients with chronic depression and other etiologies, there were a few clients with personality disorders, which provides the greatest challenge to any organization. On one Tuesday, I was hailed down on Main Street by a client who suffered at times from his personality disorder. He was in an aggressive mood and wished to express his displeasure. He was a particularly accomplished individual. I believe he actually had learned 3 languages, and I think one of them was Russian, if I'm not mistaken. He understood KCL's alleged commitment to a value-based delivery service dedicated to the objective of ensuring a meaningful and satisfying lifestyle for all, and he wanted to hurt because of his irritation. He accused us of being hypocritical and used quite a sophisticated argument to provide the maximum pain to our egos. His argument, by analogy, if you deal out a deck of cards into 4 hands and find one with 13 spades, 13 hearts, 13 diamonds, and 13 clubs, you would really be impressed and think that that hand deserves special attention. The odds of such a hand, according to him, was a trillion. I don't know what that means, but it's pretty large anyway. But here's the thing, he said, the odds of getting such a hand are no more unlikely than every deal of cards has ever been happening. And I subsequently actually found out that this was in fact the case. And so we KCL should pay as much attention to him as much as others. By implication, he was dealt a mixed bag of cards. No attempt at indicating Diane was dedicated to this view, a meaningful and satisfying lifestyle for all, and that she in particular espoused this philosophy wholeheartedly. Nothing could persuade him otherwise. That was on a Tuesday. The next day we tended to meet on Wednesday morning, and I casually mentioned it to Diane that client X was having a bad day, which she confirmed. Without Diane being aware of this encounter, I paid close attention to her program. During the next month, on a weekly basis, Diane would bring to our attention various new methodologies she would be introducing to KCL including, and my memory doesn't serve me right in terms of all of them, Diane, but I remember in particular, that was the month you introduced the hearing voices, where different voices would come on the phone, which was quite debilitating to people with schizophrenia who hear voices. And this was designed to make staff more sympathetic to that particular client group. And also writing your personal story program to encourage self-awareness and self-pride. I have no hesitation to introduce Diane as a person who has incredible capacity to respect all persons, to honor all persons as entitled to a meaningful and satisfying lifestyle, who is willing to meet people where they're at and provide supports they desire rather than cookie cutting programs. She is eminently qualified to administer the program she will be speaking on. A friend of mine who prefers to sleep outdoors in a tent most of the winter required a couple of weeks support this particular year due to some injury acquired during the winter. He was served by your program for a necessary week or two, and while preferring his outdoor residential accommodations, he indicated he was very pleased to receive your support. Ladies and gentlemen, Diane Pelletier.
Thank you, Jim. You did way better than I did when I sent my bio to Kelly. I think it was like 4 sentences. It's very nice to be here today, and I want to thank everyone for having me come and talking about the Kenora Waterview Housing Project. And I'd also like to acknowledge that we are on Treaty 3 land. So I'm pretty sure everyone's familiar with the Waterview. It's located in Norman. It's the previous Tower Motel. And in and around October, it was leased by the Kenora District Services Board to provide housing to some of the individuals that we have been living on our streets and utilizing fellowship, our shelter, and as well as Morningstar. In and around November, KCL was approached and asked if they would manage this Waterview project. The project is known as an All Nations Health Partnership project. So the All Nations Health Partnership is a partnership made up of 15 different health service providers. And together they've created this housing opportunity. And this is one of many projects that are underway in Kenora and actually in the district of Kenora to provide comprehensive responses to a fundamental need of all citizens to have housing. So I think KCL, we were asked to manage the Waterview because we have, as Jim was talking about, well over 60 years experience working with individuals of all kinds in the community of Kenora. At present, at the Waterview, we have 11 rooms that are available for people, and we are housing 17 individuals that were on your streets pretty much since the middle of December. No, actually the 23rd of December is when we started bringing people in. So under the All Nations Health Partnership, we have, as I said, there's 15 partner services that provide health type service. And we have many of them involved in supporting the people there. I'm just going to run through some of the services that we're receiving. And these are all individually based. So the people that are living there, one person may have one service from that organization, and the neighbor might have something completely different. So we have Kenora Chiefs Advisory. Many of the people come and go with Makwa as their transportation. They also take buses to and from Waterview because it is a bit of a journey for them to go back to their community in terms of the downtown core of Kenora, which is really where their community exists. But we're trying to get them to move more to the Norman area and see Waterview as their community. The Northwestern Health Unit is involved in terms of, we have 2 individuals who are pregnant, and so they provide us with maternity care. The Métis Association, which is just across the street from us, has offered any OTN services that we would like to use. And so that's particularly important when you have individuals who might need specialist appointments. They can just walk across the street, and that specialist can meet with them through video conferencing, similarly to what we're doing today. Then we have WinHack, which is providing us life skills, counseling, foot care, diabetes education, some land-based healing, as well as cultural connections through smudging. We have Kenora Sexual Assault Center has come in and provided us with presentations. Of course, KCL is providing the leadership in terms of managing the Waterview, but we also have case management that's prominent. The family health team has outreach healthcare, so we have a doctor and nurses coming weekly, actually, which has been wonderful for people who have had barriers to being able to access and not having sort of a roof over their heads in terms of follow-up and ensuring that they get the medications. We have the RAM clinic coming regularly as well, so that's rapid action access to addictions medicine. CMHA Kenora branch, so Canadian Mental Health Association Kenora branch is providing a case management to an individual. We of course have the OPP involved in supporting us, and they are very aware and familiar with the people who are living there, so that if they find someone downtown or if there's an issue, we can communicate with them. And the Lake of the Woods District Hospital, also through their community programs, we've received donations of blankets, and they provide 3 breakfasts a week for us right now. The Hearts of Knox women have been quilting for us. So we have received several quilts. They're beautiful quilts and are absolutely very well received. And I think for many people, it might be the first time they've had a homemade quilt to put on their beds. And of course, the Northwestern Health Unit has been also providing us donations of clothing. They've even bought us a freezer so that we could keep food frozen. So when you're trying to feed 17 people in a pandemic, freezers are a really valuable thing to have. So all of these agencies and services are part of the All Nations Health Partner group. And we look at it as a project that's bringing together all of those agencies to help us support people who are living there. We also have identified a real importance around communications with our neighbors and our business community. So I try to do it more often than once a month, but at least monthly, I try to get out and talk to all the businesses around the Waterview, make sure that we're good neighbors, that they don't have issues with the people that are living there, that they're not being bothered or there's any issues. And I've also done that in the residential areas. So down close to the waterfront, we've given flyers and we've talked to people. We've done it as well across the railway tracks behind us, so that there's an awareness of the work that we're doing and what we're trying to do, and that I really want support from our community and the people around us in order to make this successful for everybody. We've had a couple of birthdays, which were sort of celebrated, asking the people what it was they wanted to have for supper. One person wanted meatloaf and mashed potatoes and gravy. So that was a pretty easy supper. They had a birthday cake, first one they've had in well over 20 years, he said. He actually couldn't remember when the last birthday cake he'd had, so that was kind of a nice story for everybody, and I think it made the staff feel pretty positive about the work that we're doing. We've had one person move out already, so they moved in and really were able to feel sort of stabilized, I guess, and comfortable. And they moved out with a promise that if they needed us, they could come back and talk to us, or if there was any services that they were getting outside of what we were providing, they could come back. We're also, there's been skirt making classes, and of course the smudging that's going on 2 and 3 times a week. I really like the when you put it forward, it will be returned. That really says a lot about what it is we're trying to do as well in our communities, and bringing in the people that probably haven't had a lot of opportunities. So I just wanted to read a quote from Brené Brown, and it's sort of the basis that we've looked at for the work we're doing. And it's, when we find people struggling, let's not try to fix them because they're not broken. Rather, let's create opportunities that allow them to find the power within themselves, the power to be able to help themselves once again, help them build on their gifts, their strengths, create opportunities where they are once again welcome back in the community, where they can play a role, where they can contribute. Let's not marginalize them to the shadows. So that is really a lot about the work that I think we're doing. And so there's sort of 3 expectations that we have of the people that come in to the Waterview. The first is take care of yourself. And the second is take care of each other. And the third is take care of this place. And I'd really like to ask that the Rotarians who are here today and whoever else is listening in, I'd like to ask you for your support. This is, I think the issue after the shelter and all of the conversations and the people who were very concerned about the neighborhood and what was going on, that presented a lot of issues for many people, understandably. I sat in on, I think, 2 or 3 sort of community gatherings where people were quite concerned about their safety. And I don't want that happening again with the Waterview. And I think it's going to take a lot of people talking pretty positively about our work to probably change some of the attitudes that I think exist. We've got a pretty strong neighborhood. I know that in talking to many of the neighbors, the business neighbors, it's been pretty positive, but there's still hesitancy. And so I just want everybody to know that we're doing everything we can. We're trying to include as many people as we can. We're trying to build, you know, within reason. I mean, people need to make their own decisions about what it is they want to do each day, but we're trying to provide opportunities like this says, so that you get to make your own decisions. So that's about it. It takes a community.
Thanks, Dan. There's one of the questions in the chat was, can you provide info on the intake and selection process? How do you decide who gets into the Waterview housing?
So through the All Nations Health Partnership, there's a subcommittee called the Vulnerable Task Force. And the Vulnerable Persons Task Force is made up of every membership as part of the All Nations Health Partners, but you know, like people like myself, it's not the top people. It's so we all sit down and have conversations, and it was determined that the priorities, I guess, were people who were seniors, so over 60, 59, 60 and above, and especially those that had health conditions, and women that were pregnant. That was sort of the priority groups, and we were full with that priority group. We didn't have to even go to the second stage. There are a lot of seniors living on our streets who don't have a roof over their head, which is sad to say.
Thank you. I'm going to open the floor to questions. Fred, your hand is up. Do you want to start?
Thank you, Sheila, and thank you, Diane, for bringing forward some very positive information about, I think, what's a positive program. I'm wondering if KACL is in a position, or if you're not in a position, if you could recommend somebody to lead a planning process for the needs of the homeless people in our city. It seems to me that that there's a lot of action going in all different directions and no coordinated approach to looking after folks that are very desperately in need. The hub was supposed to do that, but it didn't. So who can make get us all together and fill the gaps and so we look after folks?
That's a very good question, and I agree with you, because I've been involved in a few different groups, boards, specifically around this conversation. And it came up again, actually, when Minister Rickford made his announcement on last Wednesday. He was actually on the deck of the Waterview when he made that announcement. And so the Kenora District Services Board has identified that that is definitely an area that they would like to have conversations around. And I think the All Nations Health Partnership as well is attempting to coordinate those services, of which Kenora District Services Board is Henry Wall, and he and Joe Barnes, who is the CEO of Kenora Chiefs Advisory, they are the chairman of the All Nations Health Partnership. So hopefully, I think these structures are just sort of new and getting kind of organized. And I know that doesn't mean a lot if you're homeless on the streets. You know, you've been waiting a long time and there's not, but I think having 17 and hopefully in the next couple of weeks another 2, so 19 people off the streets will be helping. But I think the count, when we first looked at the numbers of people that applied to the Waterview, we were well over 80 individuals. So, you know, I know that the fellowship and the shelter are doing their best to support, but I know in those cold nights, the warming centers were full. So we still have a lot of work to do. But I agree, Fred. I think we need to look at who's going to lead us in a direction to coordinate all the things that are going on. And I don't really have an answer, other than maybe Henry Wall, who's the housing guy.
Question, Sheila? You're muted, Sheila.
That's why she didn't hear me. Marlene had her hand up. Marlene, did you have a question? And then I'll go to you, Carolyn.
Yeah, so it's more a comment, I guess, than a question. So in looking at who's going to lead us out of the wilderness in terms of the homelessness that has plagued Kenora for so very many years, it is going to take a lot of people. But the one voice that wouldn't be at the table if we're looking at the options that are brought forward is the voice of the people that are on the streets. And so I think my plea is for anybody that's going to deliver any sort of programming, you know, any sort of coordination, any planning, needs to talk to the people that are on the streets, because they're very diverse and their needs are varied. The type of housing that they're looking for is different. So I think regardless of who does that, we need to consider their voice.
Thank you, Marlene. Carolyn, did you have a question?
I'm just wondering, and Fred can correct me if I'm wrong, but I wondered if his question was maybe asking from Diane for a list of priorities in terms of needs. Like, I think the way Fred's head works is that how can we help, right?
Mhm.
And so if you can prioritize what things we could possibly help with in order of need, I think that would be great.
I'm just looking at the chat comments. Don just put in, when I hear about 15 agencies coming to help them in the new location, it speaks a lot about the need for housing first. So we say housing first, but I think Marlene has a point with what does that mean to people? Diane, you did say that one person had moved out. Did they move out to other housing options?
Yes.
So
Yeah, so that's one of the biggest issues I think that we have is there isn't a lot of housing availability for people that's affordable and safe. And so recognizing that when an apartment comes up and people have had their names on these lists for years, we were fortunate that the one woman was able to move into her new space, but I don't know that we'll have many more people moving out just because there's nowhere for people to move to. Yeah.
that's a bigger Kenora issue.
Yeah.
I know it's being talked about. And then
We need builds.
Go ahead.
And we need things built. And I agree with Marlene. We need to talk to the people first to find out what it is that they want to live in. I sit on the board of Making Kenora Home, and years ago we did a survey with the individuals at the fellowship and asked, if you could have a place to live, what would it look like? What would you want? And everybody really just wanted a room with a bathroom and a hot plate. They weren't interested in having big spaces or big houses or a lot of room. I think part of it is about guest management and not really wanting to tell people, no, you can't come sleep at my, in my home, or having small spaces, maybe feeling more comfortable in a smaller space. I don't know, but that was definitely the feedback that it was Nan Norman that did most of that survey.